Scanlan International. Surgical instrumentation and products known and respected in operating rooms worldwide. A company with a distinguished history. Since 1921, serving the leaders of medicine. A story of an American family and a tradition of entrepreneurship, combining the best of old world craftsmanship and 21st century technology.
The business started with my grandfather, who was quite a promoter and entrepreneur. He had many ideas about many things, from ice skating, boxing. Began the business by manufacturing instruments for the Mayo brothers. He was friends of Will and Charlie Mayo by way of playing bridge with them. And when he discovered this steel over in Sweden, a steel they were calling rustless steel, they made some scissors out of it. My grandfather presented them to the Mayo boys, and the Mayo boys said they looked pretty good. They needed some modification, and that's how we started making instruments.
Dennis R. Scanlan Sr. was soon visiting the top surgeons of the day, such as Dr. George Kreil of the Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Harvey Cushing, pioneering neurosurgeon. Traveling from coast to coast, Scanlan displayed his superb quality stainless steel instrumentation across the United States. From his offices in New York, Dennis R. Scanlan Sr. rubbed shoulders with the world's elite. His enthusiasm for stainless steel even influenced Walter Chrysler to use it as a building material on the top of the Chrysler Building, at that time the second tallest building in the world. In the late 30s, Scanlan Sr.'s son, D.R. Scanlan Jr., joined him in the business. He learned from his father how to really listen to their customers and develop new instruments based on what he heard. With the outbreak of World War II, D.R. Scanlan Jr. went into Air Cadet training. He loved aviation and served in the 8th Air Force in Europe. He later recalled a lot of people said, "Don't volunteer for anything in the service." I volunteered for anything that would keep me learning about aircraft. He kept his eye on the bulletin boards for new opportunities. Eventually, he was assigned to develop new techniques to guide B-17 Flying Fortress bombers using radar to find targets. He rose through the ranks to become a captain and commanded a control tower at Alconbury Air Base in England. After the war, he continued his interest in aviation and bought an interest in Northwestern Aeronautical, an aviation training and maintenance facility that converted war surplus military planes for civilian use. The 50s saw great advances in open-heart surgery. New techniques brought new needs for instrumentation, and Dennis Scanlan Jr. turned his attention to the foundations laid by his father, developing instruments for doctors in the rapidly expanding discipline of open-heart surgery. He worked closely with many pioneers in the field, such as Dr. C. Walton Lillehei, and is a founder of the prestigious Lillehei Surgical Society. Another cardiovascular pioneer, Dr. Sam Hunter, recalls a design idea produced by Scanlan to answer a crucial need to partially occlude the aorta.
Very short time, he brought this into the laboratory. Said, "Is this what you need?" And I said, "That's exactly what I need."
The partial occlusion clamp that D.R. Scanlan Jr. designed is currently in production today in many sizes and styles in both stainless steel and titanium, and is used in operating rooms worldwide. By the 1960s, Scanlan innovation expanded into instrument care and single-use products.
Dad would be in making calls on surgeons. He would listen to the nurses speaking about instruments being mixed up and that they weren't able to keep them all straight.
The result was SurgiBand, the first product making it possible to safely sort instruments and instrument sets by color coding. Another of the many products that resulted from close collaboration with doctors was the circumflex scissors, or backbiting scissors. The unconventional 125-degree angle on this instrument revolutionized coronary bypass surgery by allowing a precision cut to be extended on the coronaries behind the heart. While some of his artisans didn't think such a design was possible, Dennis Scanlan Jr. modified existing instruments to develop a prototype. Scanlan referred to himself as a student of tools. He would go to shoemakers, auto mechanics, carpenters, wherever tools were used. He wanted to see how each tradesman used the tools in their hands. By the late 60s, the third generation of Scanlans entered the business with the arrival of Tim.
Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving dinners, the food would be taken off the table and the new products would be on. And Dad and Tim would talk and pour over these new products, these new instrument designs, and new opportunities.
The collaboration between D.R. Scanlan Jr. and Tim proved to be very fruitful, with many new products for not only the vascular and cardiovascular fields, but for a wide range of specialties. With Tim's vision of a truly global future for the company, the Dennis R. Scanlan Jr. Company became Scanlan International. Tim went on to become the president and CEO of the company, with his father at his side. The 70s saw an additional third-generation Scanlan joining the business, Tim's sister, Bridget Scanlan Ike. Bridget was mentored by her father and brother into the business to preserve the unique, painstaking design and manufacture of the Scanlan instruments. She works closely with Scanlan customers in expanding the line of instrument designs, as well as with the artisans in Belgium, Sweden, Germany, and the U.S.
So many of our artisans made armor for the kings. That's how far back their worlds go with working with steel. Now we work with titanium and steel. But all of our instruments are still made by hand. Most instrument houses now mass produce instruments. We still make it one piece at a time, by hand. Now people say, well, that's expensive and it takes time. And we say yes, and it makes it the best. Don't get me wrong, we still use new technology whenever we can find it, but we also cherish and utilize the old world way of making a handmade scissors. Our hollow grind on our blades is still unique within the industry, and those kinds of things we keep. And so you can imagine that our relationships with those people that are working one piece at a time must be that much more nurtured, because they need the patience to do that, to sit at a wheel, to grind or polish, to produce something unique. So we really cherish those relationships with our artisans, because they're very proud that they do make these things and that they know that they make them to save people's lives.
Scanlan also maintains in-house artisans to modify, repair, and produce custom Scanlan instruments. By the 1980s, Scanlan's development and production of single-use and OR products had greatly increased. Surgiloop silicone loops, VascuStat single-use bulldog clamps, Surgipaw jaw covers, and many other single-use products were developed in response to the needs of Scanlan customers. Tim went on to establish several new enterprises to serve the medical community. Surgical Technologies Incorporated, McLean Medical and Scientific, Scanlan Group BV, Vascular Innovations, and Scanlan Worldwide. Surgical Technologies attracted another sibling, Joe Scanlan. In the tradition of the Scanlan family, Joe brought fresh insights and enthusiasm to the enterprise. Throughout this time, Scanlan International's exhibits at conventions and medical meetings continued the tradition of bringing the finest surgical instrumentation and OR products in the world to the medical profession. In 1993, Scanlan International lost its shining light, D.R. Scanlan Jr., at age 79. He left the company with his own imprint marked indelibly upon it. D.R. Scanlan perceived a basic goodness and value in the human condition, which gave this company he molded the ability to maintain more than a make-and-sell mentality. The idea is to touch in a positive way, do a little more each day to make it better, he said, and always do it right. His idea, like the man himself, was simple. Sell the best honestly, and they'll be happy to see you come back. At the beginning of a new millennium, Scanlan International continues a remarkable tradition of growth and innovation. Advances in medicine constantly require new and improved instrumentation, and Scanlan responds with the best. Robotically controlled instrumentation, developed in part by Scanlan, has extended and improved the surgeon's hand. Scanlan International and the Scanlan group of companies have remained privately held. Scanlan products are now sold in 76 countries through 60 distributors throughout the world. The vision of our founders has been extended and amplified. Always do it right, said D.R. Scanlan Jr., and they'll be happy to see you come back. The success we enjoy today is the result of scores of faithful Scanlan employees doing it right over the years. Scanlan International.